Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. All right. First up today in D&D news, we don't really have any D&D news, aside from the fact that Strixhaven is coming out on December 7th. So make sure you get your pre-orders in because there have been a lot of different supply chain issues, particularly around the holidays. So make sure you get those orders in if you're hoping to get it on release date. And if you already have a pre-order in, I would just make sure that you know, all your stuff is good to go and set with your game store or wherever you have ordered it from. Then over to streams at 4:30 on twitch.tv/DND, we have Candlekeep Mysteries, and at 7 on twitch.tv/DND, we have Into the Mist. Again, if you know of any streams that I should be talking about, please let me know, and I will work them into the rotating schedule so that I can plug them for other people. Then moving forward to T&D today, we are in the "You Are the Greatest" or "You're the Greatest" mug that a bunch of my friends/players got me actually from 1989, which is fun. And inside of it, I have just some straight up normal green tea. I am going straight to work after this, and so that's going to be a lot of walking. It's kind of hard on my joints, so I'm going to go, and hopefully this will help with that a little bit, and it'll keep me a little bit more awake. All right, but without further ado, let's get straight into it, shall we? I'm super, super excited about this one. We are talking today about Rangers as a class. I know I have said several times going through the different classes that, oh man, this is one of my favorite classes, I have a real soft spot for Rangers. My first character I have ever played was a Ranger. I love the class. I think that it gets a lot of unnecessary hate, but that is more a matter of opinion than anything else. So go ahead and be mad about it if you want to, but I love Rangers. So let's talk about what they get as we go through here, and we will then talk a little bit about the subclasses, and we'll wrap up from there. So first things first, at first level, they pick up Favorite Enemy and Natural Explorer. These are two of the things that I think people kind of don't super understand always because they don't really want to try and understand it, even though it's pretty straightforward. Favorite enemies, you have advantage on any checks to track that particular type of enemy, and you have advantage on intelligence checks to recall information about that type of enemy, in addition to learning a language that they speak. That's really it. That's pretty straightforward. You are particularly good at chasing down and remembering stuff about one very specific type of creature. With Natural Explorer, you pick a type of terrain and you gain a whole bunch of benefits from it. Difficult terrain doesn't slow your party's travel in that. When you are traveling solo through your favorite terrain, you can move stealthily at normal pace. You cannot become lost except by magical means. You are always kind of alert to danger, no matter what you're doing while you're there, which essentially just means that you don't get the penalty for doing something else in your favorite terrain. You are always effectively on watch. You are very good at tracking within your favorite terrain. You can learn the exact number, movement, and time that has passed since these creatures have gone through, and you gain double the amount of food from foraging that you would normally gain in your favorite terrain. A lot of these things apply very well to like a more gritty sort of game. However, they also are some of those things where like I like to try and remember and highlight it as my players are going through when I've got a ranger in my party. Like my home game right now has a ranger in the party, and I try and highlight these things that he is doing for the party to make their lives so much easier. They are well aware of the fact that if Climber, the ranger, was not with the party, they would have to find food somehow because they wouldn't just be producing food on their own. They are well aware that he is able to lead them back through places because he's got these abilities. So really, it's a matter of just making sure the DM is highlighting these abilities that these rangers have. Then up at second level, you pick up a fighting style and spellcasting. Those are pretty straightforward. Rangers have their own little spell list. They are technically a half caster, so they get up to 5th level spells. At level 3, you pick up your Ranger archetype, and you pick up Primeval Awareness, which allows you to expend a spell slot, and for a minute per spell slot spent, or per spell slot level spent, you can sense within a mile of you or 6 miles of you, if you're in your favorite terrain, one specific type of creature. I believe that you get, let's see, it doesn't reveal their location or number, but it tells you whether or not they are present around you. So if you are tracking down, you know, one dragon or something like that, a fairly common thing to do in D&D, it will tell you if that dragon is within a mile of you or 6 miles of you, if your mountains are favorite terrain. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. At 5th level, you pick up extra attack. That's pretty straightforward. Martial classes get extra attack. At 6th level, you pick up an additional favorite enemy and an additional favored terrain from Natural Explorer. So you just get all of the stuff that we listed at level 1, again, with a different place and creature type. At level 8, you pick up Land's Stride, which is a very, very interesting one. Non-magical plants and difficult terrain don't slow your movement, and they don't hurt you as you move through them. You also get advantage against magical plants that are... You get advantage on saving throws against magical plants that are specifically grown to make your life harder by not letting you move, like Entangle and that sort of thing. Which is very situational, but it has come up more than once for me when I was playing my Ranger. At level 10, you pick up an additional favored terrain, and you pick up Hide in Plain Sight, which allows you to spend 1 minute camouflaging yourself in the area that you're in, and when you do so, you gain a +10 to stealth checks, as long as you don't leave the spot that you are in or take additional sort of actions. This is really good for setting up like ambush kind of situations. I have always ruled, and I think a lot of other people have ruled too, that you can apply this to other people as well as like yourself. So when you are setting up for an ambush, you can go around to each of the party members, do this thing, and then give them a +10 to their stealth, so long as they don't break their cover effectively. At level 14, you pick up an additional favorite enemy, as well as Vanish, which allows you to hide as a bonus action on your turn, and you cannot be tracked by non-magical means unless you choose to leave a trail, which is honestly pretty cool, and that is another one of the things that I kind of just apply to the party so long as the Ranger stays towards the back, because it makes sense to me that you're essentially covering your trail as you go, so why wouldn't you be able to do that to the party as well? But it also hasn't come up a whole lot yet, because you aren't necessarily always on the run from stuff. At level 18, you pick up Feral Senses, which is a very, very interesting sort of thing that I wish came online earlier, but it's fine that it doesn't. You do not get advantage, or you don't get disadvantage from attacking invisible enemies, so long as you aren't blinded or deafened. And you are aware of invisible creatures within 30 feet of you, so long as you aren't blinded or deafened. And they are not hidden from you, like they haven't succeeded on a stealth check against your perception. And finally, at 20th level, you gain Foe Slayer, which allows you to, once per turn, add your Wisdom modifier to an attack or damage roll against one of your favorite enemies, which at this point you should have 3, unless you have picked Humanoid as one of your favorite enemies, which allows you to then pick 2 subsets of Humanoid as favorite enemies. So you can have up to 6 favorite enemies, essentially, is what I'm saying. Which is pretty cool. And that brings us to the end of the core Ranger features. Tosh has introduced a bunch of optional ones, which are honestly pretty cool, pretty good all around. They change out favorite enemy for favored foe if you want to use that, because favorite enemy it doesn't have the best additional stuff that goes with it. Instead, favored foe allows you to hit a creature with an attack roll and then create a mark on that creature for a minute or until you lose concentration, and then the first time on each of your turns that you hit that creature or that favorite enemy with damage to deal it, or with damage dealt to it, there we go, you add an extra d4 to that damage. You can add that, you can do that a number of times per long rest equal to your proficiency bonus. You can mark things per long rest equal to your proficiency bonus. So that just adds extra damage, which is cool, but it does get rid of all of the tracking and intelligence checks to recall information, so it kind of depends upon what kind of thing you are actually campaign you're actually running. There we go. That's the word that I wanted to use. That's the biggest one. And the other biggest thing that they kind of swapped out from Tasha's is this first subclass that we're going to talk about here. So let's get into the subclasses. First one is Beastmaster Ranger. This is the reason that Rangers get hate, honestly. The Player's Handbook Beastmaster was not particularly good, and by not particularly good, I mean it wasn't good. It really wasn't. It sacrificed a lot of action economy for mediocre attacks from an animal companion. However, in Tasha's, they revamped it so that it is much more similar to other classes that get you like a companion buddy kind of thing, because they had time to figure out what was wrong with the Beastmaster and apply it to those things. And so with Tasha's, they set out revised rules for it, and now it is actually a pretty viable class, which is cool. And so I'm very glad that it finally got some attention that it really needed. And it allows you to have a big animal buddy that follows you around. And you can change the form of the animal buddy in this new version of it, because you pick a beast of the land, sea, or air, and you roll with it from there. Following the Beastmaster is the Drake Warden, which is honestly relatively similar. I'm not going to say the exact same because it definitely has different class features. It is very similar to the Beastmaster in the sense that you get a friend. However, this friend is a dragon. That's it. You get a dragon buddy in addition to things like Draconic Gift, Drake's Breath, Perfected Bond, that sort of thing, that allows you to use different aspects, essentially, of Draconic power as yourself and as your dragon friend. However, it's just cool to have a dragon buddy, and I'm kind of surprised that they didn't lead with this subclass, and that it has taken them this long, because it just came out in Fizz Bands. So I'm super excited to finally have this one here. Then we have the Fae Wanderer Ranger subclass, which is actually pretty cool. It is the charismatic one of the bunch for Ranger subclasses. It puts a lot of emphasis on the charisma that's associated with the Fae and being sort of like this sort of vessel almost for interaction between the Fae and the the material plane, which is really cool. And I'm interested to see how somebody plays that whenever I actually get to play with somebody or play for somebody or run for somebody that is playing a Fae Wanderer Ranger. Because I think that it's a really cool subclass, and that most people go for the next one that I'm about to list without really looking at the other ones. The next one is the Gloom Stalker, and there is a reason that most people just sort of go for it. It is because it is the assassin of the crew. It is the hardiest fighter, really, of the crew. It is phenomenal. Honestly, it is not only one of the best ranger. It is not only the best ranger subclass in terms of mechanical benefits. It is one of the best fighting subclasses, in my opinion, in the game. It is so phenomenally good because you get an extra attack on your first turn. You can move extra on your first turn. You become like invisible while you are just sort of in dim light. Like, it is so good for fighting specifically. And so if you're not playing like a fighting game, maybe it's not the best for you. But if you are, and a lot of D&D campaigns have a decent emphasis on fighting, you're going to want to play a Gloom Stalker if you're playing a Ranger, probably. Give it a read. It's really cool. Next up is what I think is the most underrated Ranger subclass in the game, the Horizon Walker. I adore the Horizon Walker. The problem with the Horizon Walker is that a feature that I think is kind of its core feature doesn't come online until level 11. And that is when you get to teleport around the field like a crazy person. Our Horizon Walker is a planar warrior, essentially. They are the ones that can sense portals between planes, sense the rifts between planes. They eventually, as I mentioned, become able to teleport themselves around as they attack things, which is just super cool. They get extra damage for existing and attacking stuff as a planar warrior. So it they are super cool. However, at 11th level, you pick up Distance Strike, which is the thing where you get the ability to just teleport 10 feet immediately before every attack you make. And yes, that is before. However, that is really good if you are playing, and it sort of forces you into playing a ranged ranger, because you can perfectly well play a ranger that is a martial, two-handed, great sword kind of character. I've got a player in one of my games right now that is playing a ranger that wields a maul, and she loves it because she just gets to crush stuff. But this one sort of shoehorns you more into a ranged weapon attack kind of thing, which is fine, because essentially what you can do is go have somebody within 5 feet of you go to shoot, immediately teleport backwards, fire, and do it again. And you can actually go up doing, like, go backwards and up. You can make your way up a cliff doing this, which is pretty cool. That is what I'm going to say about the Horizon Walker. I think it's underrated. I think more people should play it, and I am excited to hopefully get to play it at some point at a higher level, because I think it's really, really awesome. Next up is the Hunter. This is the other Player's Handbook subclass that came out. It does not contribute nearly as much to why Ranger gets so much hate. However, it is pretty boring. It was the subclass that I had for my first Ranger, but it is got a lot of features in it that really probably should have just been added into the base Ranger. It's very bread and butter. It's very sort of vanilla, but it is also kind of a lot of fun. You get essentially 3 different options to choose from at pretty much every level that you pick something up, and you get to choose from those options. And you can pick from things like, at certain levels, pick from things like evasion, among other things, which is one of, I think, the best abilities to have in the whole game as you go up. And the fact that monks and rogues both get it is pretty cool to me. But I think that the Hunter really kind of should be broken down and spread out over the entire class, but that's fine. They're cool enough to play on their own, honestly, because you get a good few cool features. Next up is the Monster Slayer. This one it has a lot of potential, and honestly, if you're in the right campaign for it, it is super, super awesome to get to play, because it is all about essentially taking down that one big monster. So you go in and you can essentially, like, zero in on the boss monster and take it out. That's its whole thing, is taking down the one big guy that you really, really, really need to get rid of. But in groups of smaller enemies, it's kind of like, okay, you can't really apply the features to as much stuff. But that boss monster is going to have a lot more trouble with a Monster Slayer in your party. And finally, we come to Swarm Keeper, which is another one of the relatively new, not like new, but relatively new ones that I like a lot. This is actually the subclass that my Ranger with the Maul is playing. And it just lends a lot of versatility, because your swarm can do a lot of different things for you. It can make you fly. It can move you around. It can move enemies around. It can deal additional damage. There's a lot of versatility in just having the swarm exist. And the fun thing about the swarm is that they have changed it since it was Unearthed Arcana. It used to be a swarm of tiny beasts, like a mystical tiny beasts. They've changed it to tiny Fae spirits, essentially. But most DMs that I have heard of that run for a Swarm Keeper allow it to be tiny beasts still, because it's funnier that way. You can just kind of pick what you want your swarm to be. You obviously automatically sort of go to, like, bees and stuff like that, but it could be instead, tiny velociraptors or something like that, because those are beasts. So get creative with what you want your swarm to actually look like, because they can do a lot of cool things, and it's infinitely funnier when there's something weird. So go for it, and why not? But that is everything that I have to talk to you guys about this morning. Thank you so much for tuning in and making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much to my patrons in particular. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. We are so very close to our Patreon goal of being able to push this show as a podcast and put it out on podcasting platforms as well. So if you're able to, you may be the one that push us over that line. Thank you so much in advance. I will be back tomorrow to talk to you guys again, but until then, keep on rolling.